What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods back with another Week 12 college football preview right here on YouTube, man. And we are headed to the AAC in a giant matchup between SMU traveling to face number 5 Cincinnati in Nippert Stadium this weekend. And this game could not play a bigger role in determining who is going to represent the AAC in the upcoming championship game in just 2 weeks. SMU, Houston, Cincinnati, all still alive, but this weekend is going to go a long way in determining who can clinch their way or find their way to that championship game. Going into this one, Cincinnati is a 12-point favorite over SMU in a game that kicks off at 2:30 p.m. Central Time live on ESPN, man. And let's set the table here, set the stage before we get into the game. The Bearcats enter this one 10-0, 6-0 in conference, and are coming off a giant win in Tampa against South Florida last weekend and will clinch their spot this weekend in the championship game with a win this weekend. And the Bearcats find themselves one spot out of the college football playoff. And a win this weekend, especially a blowout win, could go a long way in helping this squad find their way into the college football playoff. And so Luke Fickell's squad has to make a statement this weekend. Now, the Mustangs, on the other hand, come into this one 8-2, 4-2 in the AAC, bounce back from their two-game losing skid with a giant win over UCF last weekend. But Sonny Dykes' team can make a huge statement with a giant top five upset this weekend and give them a chance in not only the AAC championship, but also a 10-win season. This matchup is fairly new. The first matchup was only back in 2013, but the Bearcats lead this one 4-1 over SMU and are on a two-game win streak right now, with SMU's last win coming in 2017 in Cincinnati. So anything can happen this weekend. SMU knows what it's like to win on the road against the Bearcats. Now that we have the stage set, let's get into the keys of the games for these teams. The key for the Bearcats this weekend, man, for me, is going to be putting the ball in Desmond Ritter's hands and letting him do his thing with it. Let him go win the game. He's the leader of this offense, the winningest quarterback at the FBS level in college football right now. Plus, this SMU defense is allowing almost 280 passing yards per game. So the opportunity is there for a huge game for Ritter and this wide receiving core for the Bearcats. Now, overall this season, the Bearcats have been fairly balanced this season, but the passing attack is still a top five AAC passing attack with over 240 yards per game through the air and nearly two touchdowns per game through the air as well. So look for Ritter, man. He's a dark horse for the Heisman still. He's in most of the polls about the fourth or fifth spot. He could have his potential Heisman moment in front of the whole country on ESPN if he has a big performance this weekend. Now, thus far, over 2,400 passing yards, 22 passing touchdowns, and 5 rushing touchdowns for Ritter this season. He's top three in the conference in completion percentage, top two in passing touchdowns, top three in efficiency, and top six in yards per game. So this guy can do it all, and he has so much experience, and the moment is never going to be too big for Ritter and the Bearcats offense. Now, he really makes his living on his underneath game, the 0 to 9 yard passes. Those passes, he completes over 82% of those, almost 1,000 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, and over 45 first downs generated. But really and truly, this offense, when you watch the film, goes into another level when Ritter gets his deep ball working. If he can have time in the pocket and his wide receivers are able to make plays down the field, that's when Cincinnati becomes extremely, extremely dangerous. And that's something that SMU is going to have to game plan against. On those deep passes, 20 plus yards down the field, Ritter has 14 big time throws, 8 passing touchdowns, over 20 first downs, and has a 93.5 PFF passing grade. His arm is there, the playmaking ability is there, and he's not going to be afraid to test this SMU defense over the top. So that is going to be something to watch. Now, the wide receiving core is the other part of this key. The wide receiving core for the Bearcats is one of the more underrated units in this conference, and Ritter's done an excellent job of spreading the ball around, which is why I think they get overlooked because they don't have the gaudy stats of some of these other passing attacks. He has 6 different wide receivers with almost 20 or more catches this season, and all of those receivers have over 200 or more yards receiving to this point in the season. It starts with Alec Pierce, 37 catches, over 600 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And then on top of that, you got Michael Young, Leonard Taylor, Trey Tucker, and the X Factor tight end Josh Weil has been a problem. 21 catches, 6 receiving touchdowns, almost 300 yards receiving. All of these guys are going to play huge roles this weekend for Cincinnati in establishing this passing attack against this SMU defense. Of course, they have the run game with Jerome Ford and just a stable of running backs they have back there. And the offensive line's done a nice job of protecting Ritter. But Ritter's ability to push the ball down the field, be efficient, and be a playmaker in the pocket is going to be the key this weekend. He is going to have a big game through the air because that's the weakness in this SMU defense. So look for Tucker, Weil, Taylor, Young, Pierce to all have big games, and look for Desmond Ritter to play almost like a point guard and just distribute the ball to his playmakers and allow them to make plays on the outside. Now, for SMU, it should be obvious if you watched SMU football what the key should be. But if you haven't, this offense is going to air the football out and they're going to try to take the top off the defense in almost any game they play. And so for this weekend, the Mustangs have to get up over the top of this defense. It's going to be tough, but the Mustangs use this passing attack to set up their rushing attack later in the game. So being able to consistently move the ball down the field through the air is going to be the key. Right now, SMU has the number one passing attack in the AAC with over 329 yards per game. They're also averaging almost 4 touchdowns per game through the air. That's number 2 in the entire country. And it all starts with Tanner Mordecai, who transferred in from Oklahoma, man. Almost 70% completion percentage, over 3,200 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing, and 10 interceptions. In the country, guys, he's top 10 in efficiency, second in the country in passing touchdowns, and top 7 in passing yards. So Tanner Mordecai is going to be a giant piece of the puzzle for this key for SMU. Now, the reason Mordecai has been so dangerous this season is because of his ability to attack all the levels of the defense. It allows SMU to really spread a defense out and create matchup nightmares. And Mordecai is going to be able to exploit them, whether they come on the deep ball, intermediate routes, or in a short game. And that's why this passing attack works like it is. That's why it's so explosive and so efficient week in and week out. Now, on the short ball, 0 to 9 yards, he's completing almost 80% of his passes over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and over 54 first downs generated by Mordecai's short passing game. And the intermediate routes, almost 1,000 yards again, 11 touchdowns, 5 big time throws, and almost 50 first downs again. And on the deep ball, man, 11 touchdowns, 15 big time throws, and a 93.9 PFF passing grade. He can get, if you allow SMU to get loose in the intermediate to deep ball range, that's going to be a problem for your defense because they can put up a lot of points and put a lot of points up very, very quickly. So the number one thing for Mordecai is to be efficient, especially against this secondary, which we're going to break down in just a minute. No turnovers, allowing Cincinnati to have the ball extra possessions and allow them to control the clock is going to be the worst case scenario for SMU. And also the other thing is as good as the secondary is, challenge them, make them make plays. Don't let them just rest on their legacy or morals. Make them make plays this weekend. You have the wide receivers, you have the passing attack. Go be playmakers this weekend, and that's going to be the key for this passing attack. Now, as much as they do pass the ball, the rushing attack has to be there. They're averaging almost 170 per game on the ground, and it's going to be important to create some plays on the ground to win this game, to keep the defense honest. Trey Siggers at running back, over 600 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. But the key for me is going to be Ulysses Bentley the fourth, man. This kid's going to have to be electric. He was injured for multiple weeks after the TCU game, but really played a large role in SMU bouncing back against UCF this past weekend. Over 500 yards rushing, 7 yards per carry, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Bentley's going to be a giant part of what this offense wants to do on the ground. And yes, they pass first, but once you're focused on the pass, Bentley and these running backs can get loose in these empty boxes. So that's going to be something to look for is can SMU keep this defense off balance down the stretch? Now, the matchup to watch was easy. And this matchup, guys, I'm telling you, is going to be one you need to go watch this weekend at 2:30 on ESPN. The SMU wide receiving core against the Cincinnati defensive back group is going to be a strength versus strength matchup. We got the number one passing attack in the AAC with SMU against the number one passing attack for Cincinnati in the AAC. So something has to give this weekend, and you have NFL matchups, in my opinion, all across the board, and it's going to be electric to see who comes out on top on this one. Now, we'll start with the wide receiving core. The Mustangs arguably have the best wide receiving core in the AAC. They have four different guys that can take over a game, and these guys are going to have to be playmakers. It's the toughest test of the season for them, and if they can go win their one-on-one matchups and make plays for their quarterback, that's going to go a long way in SMU winning this game. Now, Danny Gray, Rasheed Rice, Reggie Robertson Jr., and Grant Caltera. Those are the four guys you're going to want to know this weekend. They are the four top wide receivers for SMU, and they all can go make plays. Gray with over 800 yards receiving and 9 receiving touchdowns. He's top four in yards per catch, yards per game, and receiving touchdowns this season in the AAC. Rice has 600 yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. Robertson with 6 touchdowns. Caltera with 4 receiving touchdowns. All of these guys have the ability to stretch the field, all have the ability to run great routes underneath, and all can make plays in space. And it makes SMU very, very dangerous when they spread you out because you most of the time defenses only have a handful of corners they trust. And what SMU is going to do is say you're going to have to put somebody on one of these guys that you don't trust completely, and we're going to know we're going to exploit that. And that's something to watch this weekend is who can exploit their matchup this weekend because this Cincinnati secondary is also 3-4 deep as well. Who is going to win those one-on-one matchups? And I cannot wait to see it. These guys have to run crisp routes. These guys cannot fall victim to drops, and they have to go make plays for their quarterback. That front seven for Cincinnati is going to be coming. So these wide receivers have to be ready for the task, and I think they will be this weekend in an interesting matchup. Now, the Bearcats secondary also has multiple NFL prospects. Headline, of course, by potential, I would say probably top 10 pick, Ahmad Gardner at corner. Sauce Gardner, as he goes by now. That's a huge part in why Cincinnati has a top 15 total defense this year and a top 6 scoring defense. They're only allowing about 160 yards per game through the air right now. That is impressive. And of course, it starts with Gardner. Still has not allowed a touchdown his entire career. Has 3 picks this season in less than 90 yards allowed. He's only allowed 87 total yards in one-on-one covers this year. Ahmad Gardner versus some of these wide receivers is going to be a matchup I'm watching very closely, not only for his NFL draft stock, but if he can shut down one of those wide receivers, it makes everything else for Cincinnati and the passing attack and the passing defense aspect very manageable. Now, also you have Kobe Bryant on the other side. He's allowing less than 42% of the passes against him to be completed, only 1 touchdown allowed, 3 interceptions, and 10 pass breakups. We see Bryant tested a lot because no one really throws at Gardner, but Bryant has done an excellent job making 13 plays on the ball and only allowing 1 total touchdown. Kobe Bryant is going to have to hold his own this week, and I would imagine SMU is going to target Bryant over Gardner all afternoon long on Saturday. You also have Javon Hicks, less than 200 yards allowed, 2 picks, 4 pass breakups. Also, Brian Cook and Arquan Bush are going to have to play big football. All of these guys have various roles in that secondary. Luke Fickell trusts his guys on islands, and he trusts them to run a multitude of different defensive cover schemes. So I would imagine Cincinnati's going to throw a lot of looks at SMU. They're going to say, listen, we're probably going to trust Gardner one on one, and everyone else is going to be able to be manned up if needed. So I would imagine it's going to be interesting to see how Cincinnati attacks this SMU passing scheme. So for me, Ahmad Gardner, Bryant, Hicks, Cook, Bush have to match up with a Gray, a Rice, a Robertson, a Caltera. They have to win this matchup. If Cincinnati allows SMU to throw for or three, 400 yards, SMU is going to win this game. You need to force turnovers from Mordecai. He already has 10 picks this year, and you need to shut down 2 or 3 of these receivers and make this offense extremely predictable. Trust Gardner on the top on the player you want to stop, and then Kobe Bryant and the rest of these guys have to play big time football. So I'm very interested to see how Cincinnati and Luke Fickell game plan this weekend. Now, for the prediction, man, just right now, I have a tough time seeing any one of the AAC beating the Cincinnati team. They're playing such good defensive football right now, man, and they just have to find out how to finish games. So I would imagine Cincinnati jumps out to an early lead. I think SMU fights their way back in, but I trust Desmond Ridder against a defense that's going to give up some big plays to go be explosive and go be that winning senior quarterback that he's been year in and year out. I also like Jerome Ford at the running back spot to make some plays. I think Cincinnati wins this one in front of their home crowd at Nippert, but I do think it's a bit closer down the stretch. I think Cincy scores late. 45-35 win for the Bearcats this weekend over SMU, a 10-point win. Don't quite cover the spread, but I have Cincinnati 45, SMU 35 this weekend in Cincinnati, man. Guys, make sure to comment your score predictions below. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and let me know your thoughts on the game below, man. I appreciate y'all tuning in for to the Blue Bloods for all your college football content. Make sure to tune in tonight for our Week 12 mailbag live here on YouTube. Make sure to do that. Also, if you want extra content, make sure to join our membership below. Just smash that join button. Appreciate all y'all support. We'll be back later tonight with the mailbag and tomorrow with more previews. But I got Cincinnati winning by 10 this weekend over SMU. Y'all let me know y'all scores below. But for right now, man, the Blue Bloods are out.